It's Tuesday and it's time for Falcon Focus. Welcome to Falcon Focus, episode number 10 here in season number 5. We're presented by Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin. My name is Matt Meadow. We wrap up our first semester hereafter. Like the athletes, we take a winter break. Won't be back with you for Falcon Focus until Tuesday, January 23rd, as we preview CIT, which will be hosted by the Falcons that next weekend. But here to wrap up the first semester, our focus in segment number 2, we wrap up the fall semester, winter semester, and look ahead to the spring semester with the Director of Athletic Communications, Jeremy Crawford. But at first, our focus will be on indoor track and field and their brand new assistant coach, that being Jenna Highmark, kind enough to join us. You're from Wisconsin. Where did you grow up?
West Bend, Wisconsin.
So West Bend. Now you're
Yep.
back here. We'll talk about how you got back here in a moment. Growing up, what sports did you participate in?
I did a little bit of everything. We definitely kept busy as a family. So in high school, I did swimming and diving, gymnastics, and track and field.
Gymnastics, swimming and diving, and track and field.
Yep. So it just kind of went year round.
Jeez. How long had you been involved in track and field?
Ever since I can remember, as just like a tiny tot. I remember my dad used to be teacher, so we'd go play in the playground, and then we get blisters on our hands. And then in the meet, we went through YMCA track and field when we were really little, so we'd run with blisters on our hands the weekend after. So ever since I was very little, I can remember that. My dad was cross-country coach for a while at West Bend West High School, so I think we kind of led into his footstep a little bit.
So when did you, at West Bend West High School, start to get the thought that, hey, maybe I can, continue my career at the collegiate level?
I think it was the interest that I gotten from some schools around the area, and I never really had thought about continuing in college until, I got those interest letters from different schools, and I took one day and I looked through them all and was like, I think this is a possibility. And so I reached out to a few coaches that had reached out to me and kind of went from there.
And it was always track and field, swimming, gymnastics, that wasn't an option?
No, I decided track is where I wanted to continue. That's kind of where my heart fell, and that's kind of what I really love to do the most. And that's why I figured that's what I wanted to continue in.
And we'll talk more about it as we talk about your time with Dubuque, but from a field standpoint, that's where you've had a lot of success in the field events. Has it always been the field side, or did you have some focus and did you have success on the track side?
In high school, it's kind of split a little bit. I definitely leaned more towards the field side of things, doing pole vault and triple jump. One of my gymnastics coaches was actually the pole vault coach for high school, so
Okay.
that's kind of how I got into pole vault. And that's how they kind of recommended, maybe you should try triple jump as well. And so I never really had thought about it until they recommended that. So I kind of went in with the intention that I was going to run more, and then it kind of split 50-50, and then towards senior year, it kind of went more towards the field side of things. So I found more success.
And you went from being a West Bend West Spartan to a Dubuque Spartan. What made University of
Yes.
Dubuque your college of choice?
I really connected with the coach. The head coach is also the jumps coach, or was the jumps coach at the time, and I felt like he really wanted me to be part of the team, and I felt like I got to meet some of the athletes, and it felt like a family, and their facilities are great as well, and just all of that combined, I felt a small school was right for me, so that's kind of how I decided to go to UD.
Were you looking to somewhat get out of the area? Did that factor in at all?
Yeah, so growing up, the joke was I was never going to leave the house. It was going to live in the parents' basement forever and never leave, but then I went the furthest of all the family. But yeah, I wanted to stay within the general area. Dubuque was only a 3-hour drive, so it felt pretty nice. But I also looked at some of the Wisconsin state schools as well, so it was just kind of a mix of things in the area.
And you mentioned when it came to the field events, your main focus, both the triple jump and the pole vault. When you look back at your time with Dubuque, what memories, what highlights stand out from partaking in those events?
I think junior year was probably my standout year as an athlete. I think that's when things kind of got put together, as a freshman, sophomore, you're rebuilding and building that foundation for your junior, senior years when things kind of get started to put together. I remember, I think conference indoor and outdoor junior year is probably my best, and my most favorite memories. I think I competed my best, had the great memories through those.
Well, it's funny. I was about to bring up your junior season, that breakout year in which you were both indoor and outdoor American Rivers Conference Championships Field Performer of the Year. And, in your time at Dubuque, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, okay, from your freshman year, sophomore year, building for the junior and senior campaigns, how do you feel like you improved or grew as an athlete in your time there?
I feel like from a physical standpoint, we definitely had a wonderful program behind it. We had a great strength and conditioning program. We had a good, weekly plan as well. And, trusting the process is where it really comes. If it's going to make or break how your season goes. If you trust the process, normally things kind of pan out the way they should. If you're giving it your heart and soul and doing what your plan says, then results will be to follow. I think freshman and sophomore year, we kind of changed some things. We kind of built on what I had from high school and went from there. And I think once we got comfortable with those changes and things felt normal, and that's how things kind of progressed there in junior year.
And it worked out. As again, if you look
Yep.
at the Dubuque track and field record book, your name can still be found up and down when you look at triple jump and pole vault. How about that senior year? How did the pandemic impact your final college go-around?
Oh, senior year, yeah. Indoor season did not go as exactly as what I wanted it to be senior year. We had a last chance meet after our conference meet, which I ended up PRing in pole vault, which was great. So I was super excited to build off that going into outdoor, and that's when the pandemic hit. We went on spring break and never came back to school, so that was kind of a sad ending to the track and field career. But I guess I went out on a PR for pole vault, so I guess I can't be too upset about it. But yeah, definitely kind of a sad thing ending on the pandemic. But, we still met virtually with our team. We still did a banquet online, and we had that kind of closure with everybody being able to do that.
Did you ever consider coming back for another year? Or, at that point, based on school, that was it?
So I went into teaching. So I had student teaching that next semester. And through university policy, student teaching, you can't do another sport at the same time.
Okay.
So it wasn't really an option that semester. And then I went right into teaching.
Yeah, you earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education with coaching, middle school math, social studies, and reading endorsements. You mentioned your dad was a teacher. Is that
Yes.
kind of where you got the teaching itch from?
Yeah, so both my mom and my dad were teachers.
Okay.
My dad taught for probably 20 years, then went into a principal position, and then also became an athletic director. So that's kind of where the education itch came from. I thought, I saw how much he enjoyed it, and so I thought it might be the right thing for me as well.
How about for you from a teaching and or coaching aspect? Who would you consider to be your mentor or mentors?
I think my dad plays a really big role in that I guess spot or position. I think he sets a great example. I see how everybody really looks up to him, and his decisions that he makes are definitely for the better of the whole. And just seeing him as a coach or seeing him as a principal, you look at his staff and they all just enjoy having him, and that's something that I want to kind of take on too. And going back to college as well, my college coach is definitely a big mentor. I learned what leadership really meant. I felt like I learned what it meant to be a good athlete and a good teammate and a good leader. And I feel like those are definitely some big mentors that I have.
So when all of your schooling was done, you ended up teaching middle school, elementary math as well in Iowa and Missouri. How were those experiences?
They're definitely different. So middle school math, I taught during that pandemic era, so things were constantly changing each week, and that's where I figured, maybe elementary was right for me. So I taught a couple years of fifth grade math in Raymore, Missouri. I love the teaching aspect. Teaching is something that I want to do the rest of my life, whether it's in the classroom or on the track. I feel like coaching and teaching kind of go hand in hand. You look for the best way to teach or coach your athletes or students, and I think that kind of led me to Concordia, to kind of bring me back home to be closer to family. So
You bring up a good point, though. You started teaching during the post or near the post-pandemic era, and all of a sudden, virtual learning was a big thing, or was starting to, phase out. How did that maybe change how you went about teaching, or maybe what you prepared to teach, and then all of a sudden you have to kind of change the way you approach things because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think student teaching during the pandemic kind of prepared me for the teaching aspect during the pandemic. I got to see what the schools looked like before the pandemic and during the pandemic, so I think kind of intertwining both of them is definitely the best way to go because you want to have the most normal for the students or athletes that you can while also taking precautionary measures.
Sure.
So it's kind of the balance between both, which is what I kind of tried to work around.
And now you're back here in Wisconsin. You're coaching at Concordia. What made this position attractive to you?
Being able to give back to the sport that gave me so much. So I love track and field. I've done it for my whole life. So many people have invested time into me as an athlete, and I want to be able to give my time to athletes as well and kind of invest my time in them for them to find success. I had my time as an athlete, and now it's my turn to kind of turn the tables and give back to the sport that I love. Like I said, teaching, I love teaching. I didn't know if the classroom was the right setting for me, and I think teaching kind of plays into coaching as well. And I think, being able to coach at the high level that Concordia is an opportunity that I was very happy to take on, and very excited to be able to be closer to family and be in the area.
So when you take this position, and now obviously it's been a couple of months or so, and the indoor season is off and running, no pun intended, how do you go about preparing or just getting ready for this position, get to know the athletes? What do you do? What did you do to get yourself ready for this season?
Well, I was able to get started in the summer, so that kind of gave me some time without anybody on campus to kind of get to know campus, get to know the team before I even got to meet them. One of our head coaches, PJ Sen, he helped me tremendously. He gave me kind of the ins and outs of Concordia. I think he sent me on a scavenger hunt the first week I was here just to kind of get to know Concordia a little bit more, get to know our resources, because that plays a huge role in the recruiting process, and being able to start recruiting before campus even starts opening for students. I know some of the kids live on campus during the summer, and they came to visit the office and kind of came up and introduced themselves. So I got to know some people before our season started, and we actually got to start early this year in September, which was really nice because I got to build that relationship with our athletes before our official season start date, which was nice transition into track.
What's it like to coach alongside head coach Russ DeLapp?
It's great. He has so much wisdom to give and provide.
It's a good way to put it.
Yes, he knows a lot, and it's great to be able to sit down. He's a very open and honest guy, and being able to have those open and honest conversations is what kind of creates a better coaching style, and it creates a better coaching environment and practice environment too.
Now, for you and the team, the season got underway this past weekend, competing at the Ripon Winter Open. The men's team finished in fifth. The women's team finished in fifth as well. But from a coaching standpoint, your takeaway from what you saw from the team in that first meet?
It was good. I think we went out and we competed, and that's what we went there to do. We had some top 10 finishes in school history. We had some PRs. So overall, it was a great meet. Every meet has its highs, middles, and lows, and I think that's what we kind of saw. I personally learned a lot about my athletes as well as myself as a coach going into this first season. I already have some practice ideas planned for what we have to work on coming up here after kind of reflecting on how the meet went. But yeah, I'm very excited for what's to come in January. I think this is just a very small little taste of what's to come so far for the season, but I think we have some pretty big things in store.
Let me ask you about that reflection aspect, because obviously with some teams, after a game you go back and you dissect the film. How about from a track and field standpoint? A meet ends. What do you guys do to maybe review that meet, but also, as you mentioned, prepare for the next competition?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of reflection from the athletes as well as the coaches. I think I personally like to talk through things at the meet right after the athletes compete. but also being able to have those conversations and reflect on the meet at practice too. So today's our first jumps practice after the meet, and we're going to do some reflections on how the meet went. What went well, what could we have done better, what are we going to do to prepare ourselves for the next meet. And I think that's kind of how you have to approach what you're going to be focusing on in practice too.
There's going to be a little bit of time before that next meet coming up on January 13th, the Carthage Firebird First. So what happens between now and January 13th? Obviously, the holiday is getting in the way a little bit as well, but is there a lot of practice going on between now? Is there more downtime prior to January 13th? What happens between now and then?
We actually have a really exciting week this week. It's Falcon Olympics. So we split our team into 3 teams. So Coach Sen runs the Falcon Olympics, and we're helping test all the athletes. So what it is testing, broad jump, triple hop, 30 time, flying 10, overhead back. So we kind of testing measurements to see how our athletes are progressing each year. But they're broken up into teams, and it's a competition. So they each have to wear their team colors, they have to cheer each other on, and they rotate between each testing station, and then they go and max in the weight room too. And all the points are totaled up to see who's going to be the champion of Falcon Olympics each year.
Are there going to be medals and a podium?
There's a trophy to be engraved. Yep.
That's a big deal.
It is. Everybody gets very excited for Falcon Olympics.
Falcon Olympics this week.
Yes.
Stay tuned for that. And then again, the team will compete on January 13th with Carthage Firebird First. Let me wrap it up by asking you, and you kind of touched on this earlier, but your expectations, I guess. Obviously, it's early and you've only had one meet, but what expectations do you have, at least here in the indoor season, for men's and women's indoor track and field?
I feel like I have some pretty high expectations of, how the team is looking right now. I think we have the possibility to do some pretty great things come, the spring and early winter. And I think, I can speak from the jumping side of things that we're looking really good in the conference-wise. And, even having some PRs this past weekend. We're looking to continue to have PRs and some big jumps coming soon.
All the best to track and field and NAC championships coming your way on February 23rd and the 24th up in Stevens Point. Jenna, thanks a lot for your time. Welcome to Concordia. All the best this season.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stay tuned. Our second segment, we focus on the fall, the winter, and the spring as we are joined by Director of Athletic Communications, Jeremy Crawford. This is Falcon Focus.
If you could make one wish, any wish, what would it be? Would you wish for more money? A better career? Fame? Or would you use your wish to make a difference in someone else's life? At Concordia University, we believe God intended us to live for something bigger than ourselves, to live boldly, faithfully. And with online programs at Concordia University, we're here to help you do that. Live uncommon.
Welcome back to Falcon Focus, episode number 10 here in season number 5. We wrap up our coverage here in the first semester, presented as always by Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin. Again, we'll be off for winter break and then back with you prior to CIT, a little CIT special for Falcon Focus coming up on Tuesday, the 23rd of January. Mark your calendars and stay tuned at CUWFalcons.com. But as we do on an annual basis, it's the gift that keeps on giving. We wrap up the first semester with the Director of Athletic Communications, Jeremy Crawford, as we recap the fall semester, look ahead to the current winter semester, and we'll touch base on the spring semester of athletics here on campus. But, Jeremy, thanks for joining us. How's life in the athletic communications office?
Oh, it's always busy. Thank you for having me once again, Matt. It's a tradition like no other being on. Hopefully there's no Pepsi rolling in the background.
No,
this time.
Let's go back to the fall sports season, a recap that was. And we'll start with football. They had a nice year in which they went 7-3, and as of the final week of the regular season, battling for at least a piece of the conference championship, a team that brought home the Cheese Bowl, knocking off Lakeland, brought home the Luther Cup, knocking off Wisconsin Lutheran. An exciting football season, an offense that was awfully explosive.
An offense that was explosive, and then a very tenacious defense. Justice Canetta being named the private school player of the year in the state of Wisconsin. Like you touched on, both of the rivalry trophies are back home, and for the second straight year, being able to compete for a NAC championship heading into that last weekend. Granted, Aurora's a very great team. They made 2 far pushes into the NCAA tournament, so congratulations to them. But it's been a really great stretch of football here for the Falcons of late.
And you bring up Justice Canetta among 15 all-NAC performers as well here this past fall. Let's move on to men's soccer. 6 victories, 9 defeats, couple of draws, 4, 6, and 2 in conference play. And I guess the one big highlight, and it's become an annual event now, back-to-back years, knocking off Carroll University for the Oktoberfest Cup.
Well, the Oktoberfest Cup, Matt, you've been there. You were there that first year, and it's an electric atmosphere.
Yeah, it is.
But even this year, I know the fans got a little bit rowdy as well. But that was Carroll's issue this year, so we don't have to worry about that. But it's a great environment, great opportunity for the teams. It's a little bit hard for our staff, as you know, trying to figure out how we're gonna pull up a broadcast and stats in the middle of somewhere where we've never been before. But the Cup's still home. I know they had a lot of close games here and there that they wish that might have gone the other way, but a really strong performance this year for the men's soccer team.
Nice addition, a transfer from Cardinal Stritch and Alishan Sharipov, who was a second-team All-NAC selection, finishing with 7 goals and 4 assists. On the women's soccer side, injuries, consistency seem to be the theme for a team that went 6, 10, and 3, 5, 6, and 2 in conference play. And again, they had some great moments, but it was a matter of putting a complete game together on a regular basis, on top of the fact Selena Eston, down the stretch, out with injury.
Correct, and with all the graduations as of last year, you knew that we were going to have to heavily rely on Selena Eston, and with her injury late, that kind of hurt the season. It's kind of similar. There was a lot of close games on that side as well, but the results just didn't come this year. But there were, like you said, Selena Eston was honored. Anna Gong was academic all-district as well, so a lot of things to highlight for a season as well for them.
And from a defensive standpoint, Carmen Rowe was second-team all-conference selection, despite the fact that she was battling through injury throughout the course of the year. And then Brooke Braga, the goalkeeper, was named all-conference honorable mention. On the women's volleyball side, they went 15-14, 9-4 in conference play, and they had a very challenging schedule, a brand new head coach in Carly Whaling. So it took a little bit to get going, but they were competitive from start to finish.
They were competitive start to finish. I got actually a few weekends ago when I was at Calvin with men's basketball. They competed at Calvin, and they were really impressed with our team and how I think that was the Platteville victory that they had, but that was just a vigorous schedule. And like you said, injury bugs have kind of been the bugaboo for Concordia this year, where they had injuries here and there where options became less and less, and so you had to try to figure out what to do. And credit to a good Edgewood team, they won the NAC tournament. But even in that match, and even the matches at the end of the year where they didn't come up big, they were competitive and they were right there in all the sets.
I was going to say, you take a look at some of those finals, and it may say, hey, Concordia lost 3 sets to none or 3 sets to 1, but look at the scores closer and look at those sets, and right there, a point or two away from those flipping the other direction. And then Macy Carfinger, for a 4th consecutive year, was all conference. Mackenzie Benter, a heck of a setter, and she was a jack of all trades, could do a lot of this and that, and had a triple-double this season. And then Abby Prayfrock at libero, and then Stella Zarling emerged as an outside hitter. Women's cross country, the unofficial, official NAC champions.
We'll call them official.
They're official.
The NAC isn't here right now.
Well, that's all right. Women's cross country, you're NAC champions.
Yeah. That was a fun season. They dominated this entire year. They started with a string of victories, and then they took on some really tough competition, taking on some of the best in the region, and they performed well. They were ranked top 10 in the region as well for a little bit there, here and there, and then the hullabaloo that was the NAC championship. They dominated. I'll say it. They dominated that one. The Falcons top 7, just pure domination there. I know that we have to technically say shared title for what happened with St. Norbert and Aurora, but the banner will go up. And
this is Falcon focus.
This is Falcon focus. We will focus on the Falcons winning.
Yes.
But no, that even with all the hullabaloo, some of the drama that just went with that was fun. We won't explain everything that went down, but
can you say that word again? Because I would hate to be the person who's got to do the closed captioning.
Hullabaloo.
Yeah, there you go.
Does Patrick even do closed captioning?
I don't even know.
And 4 or 9 guests, I would say we have 10, but I'm one of our viewers. So for the 9 other viewers, do they really need the?
Well, freshman Emma Arns, who got a lot of viewers because she was on this show at one point, was named NAC Freshman of the Year. On the men's cross country side, Timmy Bray, he came through it in a big way, and he was the individual champion at the NAC Championships, the third Falcon to accomplish that at some point in the program's history, all region selection. I promise I wasn't going to say Timmy, but I did. But he was all region as well. He was a bright spot for men's cross country.
Timmy Bray has been a really bright spot across the board for him his entire career. And like you said, the third Falcon to accomplish that at the NAC Championship. And I know that they were also dealing with some injuries as well, so they did a very good job with the lineup that they had.
On the women's golf side, they had a lot of experience backing up, finishing fourth in the NAC Championships. Men's golf, they right now sit in 8th place in the NAC Championships, and rounds 3 and 4 will come your way April 28th and 29th from Aurora, Illinois. So just a quick look at the golf landscape.
I think the future is very bright for the women's golf program. You said that they're a very experienced lineup. They do have some experience, but I really was impressed with some of the freshmen. A multi-sport athlete in Ava Litke, also on the women's hockey team. I was able to watch a few rounds this year, and they're a really exciting bunch.
Litke's a fun player to watch when it comes to hockey as well from a defensive standpoint. How about women's tennis? And they had another phenomenal year. A perfect 10-0 in the fall, 9-0 in NAC play. And you talk about experience. That entire lineup is a who's who, and it seems like some have been there for 8-9 years, and I think Ricky Budowitz has. But that is talk about explosive and talk about dominant. That's women's tennis.
That's exactly right. And like you said, Ricky's one of the few people to outlive me at Concordia. I think her freshman season started just before I got here, and then she's one of the few people who's been here. But that is an incredible lineup from top to bottom. You have the duo of Ricky and then Ashley Samuda at number 1 doubles. They dominated. Ricky is now ranked regionally and nationally as well. So a really great season for them. I think they're really excited to go to the NAC Championships this spring.
Yeah, as of the 15th of November, Ricky was ranked 39th in NCAA Division III for women's tennis, 10th in the Central Region, 14-1 her record in singles play. A couple of sports don't get a lot of love, at least not here on Falcon Focus. We'll have to work on that, but I do want to bring them up as the fact you have shooting sports, you have triathlon, both competing this past fall.
Yeah, triathlon finished 7th at the national championships for Division III teams. That sport's continuing to grow, so being able to be top 10 in D3 is a really great accomplishment there for the Falcons. Shooting sports was able to get a lot of competitions in as well. They traveled from Iowa to Indiana and all over the place, and they had a really strong fall season as well.
So overall, I guess as we wrap up the fall portion, your thoughts on the way the fall season played out?
Well, do you want me to hit on some field hockey as well?
Oh, I forgot about field hockey.
Field hockey.
I'm glad
there's so many sports here.
There's too many.
I
knew I was gonna forget. I'm sorry, field hockey. I really am sorry. Well, we saw them a lot at home this year.
I know we saw them a lot, and their entire roster's on my roster as well. So we have to talk about that. Like if we don't talk about it, I don't know what will happen in the office. But no, they had a really promising season. They have a lot of young faces on that who are really eager, and I think the future will be pretty bright for that program as well.
Yeah, that's field hockey. When you look at that conference, again, it's still a who's who when you look at center, when you look at Rhodes, Marion making great strides in their second year, and the Falcons as well. So always fun when you get in the conference play. And again, a number of home dates this past fall. Injuries, again, taking a toll for field hockey as well. Now I'll ask you about just your overall thoughts on the way the fall season played out.
You know, there's, like Jenna said, there's some highs, there's some lows, but overall it's a really fun time to be a Falcon. Like you said, women's cross country won the NAC championship. Women's tennis won as well. There's a lot of fun moments. I know that you experienced some of them on the Falcon Athletic Network. It's always fun when you take both the Cheese Bowl and the Luther Cup. So I know that we got to show the Luther game on our broadcast, but there's a lot of fun moments, and it's just a really fun time to be a Falcon.
Let's talk about the here and now in the winter. Men's basketball, a tough slate, non-conference play. A team that's got 7 seniors. They won a NAC and home opener here at the John Book Fields last week over MSOE. That was 80 to 73. And a lot of close games for the Falcon men. It's just a matter of getting over that hump.
Correct. And he scheduled a murderer's row of opponents, starting the year out with 2 of the top teams in the ARC with Loris and Central. And then you have a tough game against Carroll. Carroll always wanting to get us as well. And then you head out to West Michigan and facing the Calvin's ranked number 2 in the nation. and then a very strong and traditionally strong Hope program, and that's a very tough schedule for any team. So credit to Coach Cassidy scheduling such a tough team. But that's how you learn, I thought Gabe Pruss went point for point with a reigning All-American. So they have the pieces. It's just getting them to mesh together there.
Women's basketball lost some top scorers from last year, but they're off to a 4-3 start. They won their conference opener on Saturday at Rockford. They host Wisconsin Lutheran here inside the John Book Fieldhouse tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And that's a team that's got a lot more depth, it seems like.
They have a lot more depth, and they have some good balance where you have some quality post play, and the guards are shooting as well. DeBush has been a great addition to the lineup there for the Falcons, and there's just so many weapons and I think that's what I talked about on that broadcast, where there's just so many different ways that Coach Brian Jones can go with this team.
Let's talk women's hockey. They added some very talented freshmen. In fact, their top 2 scorers of freshman status. They bring back experience as well from last year's 14, 11, and 2 squad. You have Captain Brooke Gibson, assistant captains Amanda Bauer, Savannah Hutchins, Annalena Van Herky. So you have that nice blend of youth and experience, but you have the tough NCHA.
Well, kind of talking like what men's basketball had, that's been a very tough schedule for the women as well on the hockey side, where you're going up against the who's who of the NCHA really quick. Adrian's always a tough team, and they showed that this weekend. Aurora's strong as ever, and then you also had Lake Forest, who wanted to take back the Border Battle Cup from us, and so that's a very tough way to start the season. But like you said, the freshmen have been really electric, and they're really fun to watch.
And again, that's a Adrian team you bring up that was here, that was ranked 8th as of last weekend, coming to town. And the Falcons certainly held their own for at least half of each of those games. And now they will have a home-and-home against Lawrence Friday up in Appleton, Saturday from the Ozaki Ice Center at 7 p.m. before they go on their winter break. For men's hockey, they have a home series against Gustavus Adolphus on Friday and Saturday from the Ozaki Ice Center. How about the start for sophomore Derek Humphreys? 5 goals, couple of assists. And that's a team that's been awfully competitive.
Derek has been doing a great job to start this year, and that's a really competitive team. They're in a lot of these games. Granted, they had a very tough Adrian team as well this weekend, but when they went up to Superior, they were fighting against a very good Superior team, went into overtime. And this is just a really fun bunch to watch. This program continues to grow and take steps further under Coach Masso.
ACHA hockey off to another stellar start, 12 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie, in a position to, for a second consecutive year, win the NCHL Black Division. They have a big home-and-home weekend series against DePaul. The Blue Demons are here on Friday. That's a 3:30 puck drop at the Ozaki Ice Center before heading to Chicago for a 3:30 puck drop on Saturday. How about the freshman, Chuck Emmy?
Chuck Emmy, he is lethal. I know you've watched a handful of games, but you just watch him, and he's just destroying teams.
He makes it look effortless.
He makes it look, like you said, like, we're going top shelf for this one. We're going 5-hole on this one. And like you said, they're in a prime position to fight for another conference title here. DePaul's going to be a very tough team, but this has been the Mequon-Delac Cup's back in Mequon, and so they've had some battles so far this year, but they're one of the top 4 teams in the region.
We just talked on our first segment about indoor track and field with Houston coach Jenna Highmark, and again, they just started this past weekend, off now from competition until January 13th, although they have the Olympics, if you will, the Falcon Olympics here inside the John Book Fieldhouse for the team here this week. But let's skip ahead to wrestling, and they'll be at Elmhurst on Thursday after hosting the CUW Open a couple of weeks back. That's a wrestling team that's got a lot of new faces.
A lot of new faces, but some quality performances so far. Some medalists at the CUW Open, and then a strong performance at MSOE this last weekend. But I was just thinking, if we were flashing back a few years ago, how we would probably have to be broadcasting the Falcon Olympics for track and field on the fan. Like,
that was COVID times.
That was COVID times. A lot of blue versus white games, and now we're doing the Falcon Olympics.
I was gonna say, we got desperate back then. If somebody moved, we got a camera on them. It was that kind of.
But with a mask.
We needed content back during COVID. I think I got. I know you'll correct me. I think we got through all of the traditional winter sports.
We have gone through all the traditional winter sports.
Thank you. Now we slide over to winter/spring real quick, and I kind of bunch it together because obviously it's one of those where, it's still early, and obviously for many of these teams, preseason training camp hasn't even started yet, but you have men's volleyball right around the corner, acrobatics and tumbling, and then before you know it, men's and women's lacrosse, baseball, softball, men's tennis, all will be here.
I think that we're really primed for a strong second half of the year. I know there's a lot of excitement from the lacrosse programs where I think that they can compete for another NAC championship. Aurora's going to be tough on both of those ends. Softball, you are coming off of a Super Regionals performance, and you return a lot of the fielding lineup. I know that they're going to miss some of the pitching that we've had through the 2 years, especially with Gina, but I think they'll be in a good place. Baseball is going to be really hungry. I know they want to compete again here. Men's tennis, I think he has a really good lineup as well, some new faces that are really going to make a splash in the NAC. And then men's volleyball, I think they can compete for a NAC championship as well. They keep progressing and progressing. Quite the epic battle last year against Dominican in the NAC tournament. But I think Coach Madsen has that program in the right place as well. What else am I forgetting here? Acro, we're hosting the D3 championship. That's going to be a fun way to end the year. They have a lot of returning talent as well. Payne Tarmina leading the way there. She picked up a handful of titles last year at the D3 championships down in Texas. But yeah, I think that we're primed for a pretty strong spring performance.
Let's wrap it up. And you touched on it already, and I'll just bring up a couple of events that are coming here.
Yeah, you're going to say the 3-letter word, aren't you?
What's that?
CIT.
Oh, yeah, that I am. And you can't avoid it because our next Falcon Focus will be a CIT preview for you all coming up on January 23rd. But, again, a couple of big dates to keep in mind in the second semester. There is no NAC baseball tournament on campus this year. That's going south. But you have, as you mentioned, Acrobatics and Tumbling is hosting the NCATA Division III tournament April 11th through 13th. That's a big deal here inside the John Boot Fields. But as mentioned, at least for the immediate future, the CIT is going to be hosted by the Falcons for the first time since 2018. That coming up on January 26th and 27th. A lot going to be happening over those couple of days.
A lot's going to be happening over those next couple of days here. We'll be ready for the CIT preview episode on Tuesday, and then on Friday we'll have 4 basketball contests, and then on Saturday we'll have the cheer and dance championships, and then the championship and consolation games for basketball as well. Should be a really fun weekend. We'll also have the Hall of Fame ceremonies that weekend. Everything's getting smushed into that weekend. So
enjoy your break now.
I know.
It's going to get busy soon.
Well,
again.
Next week is my CIT prep week, so we'll hopefully have that all wrapped up going forward. But you asked a lot of great questions today, Matt.
I appreciate it, Jeremy. As always, thanks for joining us. We had plenty of Spartans to be had here on the broadcast. We had Jenna Highmark. Thank her for her time, the first-year assistant coach for track and field, the West Bend West and Dubuque Spartan, now the Michigan State Spartan. You know he's cheering for the Spartans against the Badgers coming up in a day.
I know. I was going to try, we had
Jeremy Crawford.
We had a holiday video that we were going to shoot, and I was like, oh, do I wear my green and red? But I was like, I can't wear my red tie.
You got to go blue.
Yep.
Got to go blue. That's Jeremy Crawford. Thanks for joining us. We'll do it again January 23rd. Enjoy your holidays. See you next year for Falcon Focus, presented by Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin.